Hi everyone, welcome back to the Anand Studio. We have again our very special guest, JVC Sriram sir, Jan Ki Baat Sriram sir. So we'll talk about a lot of topics in the political scenario. We'll jump straight into that. Namaskaram Sriram sir. Welcome back again
Namaskaram.
to my channel.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure to be in your channel all the time.
Thank you and thanks for giving your time.
Yeah.
So we'll quickly jump to the discussion. Right. So we are celebrating our 75th independence year. So, what do you think are the top achievements so far of all the governments that have been there in power till now? And top five, if you can think of top five achievements and top five failures as far as India is concerned.
So, okay, let's start with the legendary Sri Jawaharlal Nehru's period. Okay. I would say that when India got freedom and when a lot of infrastructure projects had to be built, like say dams and those kind of stuff, the various dams, reservoirs, irrigation projects, Indian Institute of Technology, All India Institute of Management Sciences, getting a Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, which is a premier accounting body. So a lot of those success would definitely go to Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, and I think he sowed the seeds of that, and probably that was a great thing which he had done. If you talk about, because I may not be able to go 5 and all those stuff, but let me give you a broad perspective of this whole thing. If you talk about what could be the kind of, another success was he gave a free hand to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, according to the history, who was instrumental in being the Iron Man or the Bismarck of India, who ensured that all the princely states got into India, forming the republic, getting the constitution done. These are not small things, We tend to forget about the contribution of Sri Jawaharlal Nehru's cabinet, not only himself, but in his cabinet, because he had icons from across the board, across the spectrum, at least in the first cabinet of his. So getting the right person like Ambedkar to write the constitution of the country and ensuring that the constitution has the fabric of the Indian heritage and culture. And those were some of the amazing things which I think should be credited. The Kashmir issue, to me, the Article 370 probably was required at that point of time. But by the time Jawaharlal Nehru breathed his last, I would have probably guessed that he should have been the person who should have put the full stop to it. In the sense, say, we understand, in conflict handling, we always say, compromise is when you have a complex problem for which, you can't find a permanent solution immediately, but you want to find a temporary solution. That was what was Article 370. And obviously the Chinese war, those were the kind of things which probably the Jawaharlal Nehru's tenure was probably the hits and misses, I would say. As far as Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri is concerned, his tenure was too small to be judged into, but I think he was the one who coined the Jai Jawan and Jai Kisan slogan, and who came across as a very humble prime minister. I still remember my father saying that because an accident took place in Ariyalur or Perambalur in Tamil Nadu, Lal Bahadur Shastri would even quit from the cabinet. Such was the kind of the integrity that person held across the political spectrum. So that was something which was amazing. His death is still shrouded in mystery, which is something which probably, begs a question mark. And then coming to a very iconic prime minister, I think we would be discussing about the two prime ministers who've been iconic in this country. One was from Congress, another is from BJP, who's a serving prime minister, Indira Gandhi. I think it was apt that at one point of time she said about India is Indra, and even Atal Bihari Vajpayee welcomed her as a Durga of this country, because her greatest achievement would go in terms of, at that point of time, the things like nationalization of banks. But even before that, I think the greatest achievement of her was ensuring that the creation of Bangladesh happened. She gave the free hand to Sam Manekshaw, although there are a lot of controversy around it. But she was quick to announce to the parliament that we are recognizing this country. It was not about just going on a war with Pakistan. That was one. Number two, to ensure that it is taken to the logical conclusion, and then the creation of the country, Bangladesh, was a great achievement, significant achievement. She coined the slogan, Garibi Hataao, but nothing much happened on that particular front. Obviously, our biggest downfall would be in terms of the emergency, the clamping down of the emergency for our own personal ambition or perseverance, or the protecting our prime ministerial seat or the chair. She had compromised on the democratic traditions of this country. And in this period, I think one of the things which we also need to keep persist. So these were the things which broadly can be talked about. And in her second tenure, when she came back after emergency, I think we need to also mention that the way she handled the Sikh riots, the Brindanwale incident, the Operation Blue Star, was something which was a blot as far as Indian democracy is concerned. As far as the 3-year tenure of Shri Morarji Desai, I think it was marked with a lot of instability. But the point was, one of the things which you need to keep in mind as far as the Janata Party government was the foreign policy. I think they had done a lot of breakthrough as far as the foreign policy is concerned. And they ensured that there was a new, spirit of the foreign policy which came into existence, which I think was and their closeness to Israel, who happens to be one of our biggest partners. I think, many people in the political sciences and the political commentators fail to recognize the fact that Israel has been one of the most trusted partners as far as India is concerned. And in this entire period, but one needs to understand, I think I would like to quote Dr. Rangarajan here. By 70s, India and China were on the same lines as far as per capita is concerned. In fact, China was a little lesser than that. In fact, China in the 1970s Asian Games was not even in the top 10. Okay, you're talking about development in various angles I'm talking about. From there, China leapfrogged ahead because they decided that no more they're going to have that economic route, which whatever they had, and they had the soft communist capitalism kind of stuff. But India failed to recognize it. Now, that blame would obviously squarely lie on Mrs. Gandhi, Mr. Morarji Desai, although I think, you would not have been able to take such a drastic decision because of the coalition compulsions he was having. And then, obviously, again, the 1980 to 84 Mrs. Gandhi. And then comes the 84 to 89 Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's tenure, which probably I had a very close, view of it, because that is when my political ideologies started to shape up. Okay. I think people would say so many good things about Rajiv Gandhi, introduced a lot of things like, technology. Technology was something which had to be embraced. At that point of time, the whole world was trying to understand technology. So I don't think it was something which Rajiv Gandhi, I would not give credit to Rajiv Gandhi that, the technology, because we had to embrace the technology. If Rajiv Gandhi had to be given credit, if he had done the economic reforms, which Mr. Narasimha Rao did, that would have been a bigger credit. Okay. But Rajiv Gandhi had a lot of emphasis on Panchayat Raj. Those times, you want to really decentralize the power to the Panchayats, which was obviously resisted by many of the people, state governments, like even DMK government. Okay. At that point of time, I'm not sure how many of you recall those moments or not. Because when Rajiv Gandhi said Panchayat Raj, what actually a lot of state governments like DMK, DMK was not running a government, but they were in the opposition in Tamil Nadu. They were very quick to say that center is trying to bypass state and directly give power to Panchayat. Okay, they wanted everything to flow from there. But Panchayat Raj was a great thing. And the way in which he handled this flip-flop on Shabano case, his flip-flop on Babri Masjid issues, and neither here nor there. A very charismatic prime minister, a person who came with a lot of promise, who had a lot of intent, and the way he handled the Sri Lankan issue, particularly the LTT issue, where IPKF did not have any business to go and do anything there, but he just sent them there, and which led to a catastrophe, all the kind of catastrophe, and finally he himself was consumed by this whole thing. So that Rajiv Gandhi period, somehow or other, he had a trusted advisors, but his advisors then turned foes, like, Arun Nehru, VP Singh, Arif Muhammad Khan. These were the people, Mufti Muhammad Saeed. These were actually a close quarter, along with Makanlal Photidar, HKL Bhagat, Kamal Nath was coming into prominence. There were too many people who were handling and advising Mr. Rajiv Gandhi for a simple reason that he was a very reluctant politician. If Manmohan Singh was an accidental prime minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was a very reluctant prime minister. And so then comes Mr. Narasimha Rao. Mr. Narasimha Rao, obviously, his greatest highlight was the economic reforms. But I think it was done more out of compulsions. It was more out of compulsions. But before that, I will have to come to my favorite, at that point of time, my favorite and role model, Mr. VP Singh. Now, for all the things which you talk about VP Singh, he might have done for purely political intentions, no doubt about that. The Mandal Commission report, what was lying on the back burner, he had the courage and guts to bring it out. Now, I know pretty well, if many of people who are watching your TV show would be actually trolling me for what I'm saying. But that was a landmark thing. It gave the OBCs, other backward caste communities in this country, that reservation. Now, if you ask me, is reservation good or bad? It is not a question of whether it was good or bad. Is it being implemented properly? There is a big question mark on that. But did they deserve it? They deserve it. Do we have to tweak it? We have to tweak it. Would any prime minister have the guts to tweak it? Nobody will have the guts to tweak it. Let me go on record to say. But do we require it? Yes, absolutely, it's required. Looking at the socio-economic condition of the people across the country, I am absolutely convinced that reservation would be there. And Mr. VP Singh had actually opened it. Whether you call it as opening the Pandora box, it was an irreversible decision he took. In fact, I think at one stage he must have, and he himself was not a backward caste. He was a Rajput. He was a Thakur, by birth. So that was, but the government was dysfunctional. It was being pulled in all directions, and eventually it fell. Chandrasekhar's government, I think, there is nothing worth mentioning about Chandrasekhar's government, but for the only thing that they did was, I was extremely annoyed, upset. I cried, I was depressed, because at that point of time I was an vocal DMK supporter. Mr. Karunanidhi's government was dismissed, and even in fact he was installed as a prime minister only to be removed, Mr. Karunanidhi be removed as the chief minister of Tamil Nadu. And from there we come to PV Narasimha Rao, whom I had mentioned. But then after the first promise of economic reforms and carrying it forward, there are a lot of failures. The Jain Awala Dairy, this guy, what is his name? Arshad Mehta scandal. A lot of things broke out. The financial, the inadequacies of the financial system got exposed. But also, it was in that period, the highlight of the period. So the big failure of Mr. Narasimha Rao would be, I wouldn't say Babri Masjid demolition, because I think Babri Masjid demolition paved the starting point for Ram Mandir to be there, and Ram Mandir must be there, should be there. No two ways about it. And I'm glad that Supreme Court was unanimous in that verdict. So Mr. Narasimha Rao's government was plagued by the inadequacies of the financial system. But at the same time, what Mr. Narasimha Rao's government did was, it sowed the entrepreneurial dream into India, because that is when you had this IPOs of Wipro, Satyam, Infosys, all these coming out, as a result of which actually money started coming into the hands of people, into the middle class, in the PV Narasimha Rao's government. And from there we move towards Devagowda and I.K. Gujral. Again, nothing significant happened. And then you come to Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the iconic Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, which saw the best thing was going nuclear. I think, that was something which is a courageous decision. Indira Gandhi started off, but Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee took it to a different level altogether. Number two of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Golden Quadrilateral. I think today, if we see the kind of reforms which we are seeing today, the highways and all those stuff, it is all a result and effect of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. I think these are the two big achievements of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee: the Kargil war victory, which was very good, and this one. And he tried his level best to extend an olive branch to General Musharraf, in spite of the Kargil war fiasco. But it turned out to be a no-show. I would call it as a no-show. And then somewhere there were constant pulls and pressures of Mr. Vajpayee's government, took off very well. The mobile revolution happened in a big way. during Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government, and for the first time, disinvestment was honestly done. So those were the big hits as far as Vajpayee government is concerned. But considering the coalition compulsions which the government was, the core agenda of BJP, they were not able to take it forward. Either it was Ram Mandir, or it was Article 370, or Uniform Civil Code, or CIA, all those things which they were talking about. And that alienated a lot of people from the Vajpayee government, the core supporters itself, which is why he lost in 2004. And then we come to the Manmohan Singh's government, the first UP government. I wouldn't say it was bad. It off very well. The highlight of Mr. Manmohan Singh's government was the way the recession was handled. When you had Lehman Brothers and all those guys failing all over the world, falling like 9 pins, you had the economic system which was stable, which was hats off to him. And the first term, the nuclear deal he signed, which was an amazing thing again, which was very good. So the first term was very good. But again, in the first term itself, I think there were a lot of things where he was losing control. And that is when the 2G scam and the various scams, which actually started off in UPA 1, which got reflected in UPA 2. And the whole tenure of Mr. Manmohan Singh's failure was his inability to control terrorism. Every second day, you could be hearing of some terrorist attack. We saw attacks in Delhi, we saw attacks in Pune, we saw attacks in Mumbai, 26/11. We saw attacks on Swaminarayan Mandir, we saw attacks on Varanasi Temple, in Bangalore, in Chennai. Where did we not see? So that was, along with corruption, this was the highlight of the whole thing, and he started losing control. And then we come to Mr. Narendra Modi's government. And I think, it'll be unfair on my part to comment anything at this point in time, because, the government is still on. But I think a lot of landmark things have happened in the last 7 years. Okay, the landmark things which have happened in the last 7 years has been the promises which they had given. I would say one of the social welfare, I would say economically weaker section, 10% reservation quota, which was again something which nobody else thought of. You can say so many things can be talked about as far as Narendra Modi's government, but I would say economically weaker section, because nobody was willing to touch that. It was such a very sensitive topic, and he touched it. And the greatness about Mr. Narendra Modi is that his ability to pick up a particular item on the agenda, which no one else would even thinking about it. Whether it is Article 370 in NDA Modi 2.0, or it was economically weaker section in Modi 1.0, it was GST, because world over, any government did a reform on the indirect taxes, the government fell. In fact, I remember Australian government was the only government where they had a reform on indirect taxes, and before they went to the election, they found that this is something which they should not take up, so they failed. Okay, so those were the GST was a great thing. Although there are one of the challenges which Mr. Narendra Modi's government has been is certain areas execution. GST execution, there were pitfalls. Demonetization, execution were pitfalls. The way it was envisaged and what happened, there was a gap. Now, let me be very, very straightforward and honest on this particular thing. Okay, his intent to extend an olive branch to Pakistan, where he went and met Nawaz Sharif on his daughter's or son's wedding. Okay, and what happened afterwards? There is a gap. There has always been a kind of a uneasiness among certain level of bureaucrats with Mr. Modi's style of functioning. So if that has been one of the things. And Modi 2.0, obviously your Article 370, your Ram Mandir, your CAA, these are all core Hindutva agenda, which had been taken the way the COVID had been handled on the first wave. And today, the greatest achievement of Mr. Narendra Modi has been that the vaccines, if not, we would have been begging in front of the world community. And today we are talking about 600 million people, 60 crore people having been vaccinated is no small achievement in a country like India. And we are today holding 11.7% of the world's vaccines. It is not a small thing. America holds hardly 7%, and we hold 11.7%. That's the greatest achievement. So execution, there were certain things where I think, his execution could have been much better. And this direct benefit transfer, which I think started off with Jan Dhan, has done a wonderful thing. So these were I'm not sure whether I've covered everything or not.
I think
But
we
these are the
covered.
prominent hits and misses, which I
Yeah,
can
we
think
covered
of.
extensively. And I would think from a sports perspective, especially this Olympics, we saw a lot of energy, right? And a lot of involvement by Modi ji on in that area with the athletes, with all the different Olympians that we had in India, right? So I saw that there was quite a bit of energy this time around, and a lot of inspired players out there.
Absolutely. I think there is no two doubt about it. When Anju Bobby George, who could have probably been a medal winner in Olympics, who missed it by a whisker and who had been in the world championship and had won a medal, when she says, I regret not being a sportsman today because the sports minister used to just come and visit those days and see the village and then go off for shopping.
Right.
And here the prime minister hosts everybody before, talks, tells them go and perform, express yourself, don't be bothered about results, don't be bothered about medals. You are an asset to the nation. You belong here. So those are, I think those actually eases off the pressure.
Yeah.
And it also shows the intent from the senior most person in the government that we are extremely sincere in our endeavor to achieve excellence as far as sports is concerned. And the way he had taken that, that I think Manipur, the weightlifter, she was personally sent to United States of America for a surgery, okay, and which was an amazing thing. And Neeraj had his own challenges, and he was personally taken care of. He had been to the Europe, and he had allowed them to practice. So there are a lot of interventions which happened, and which happened very silently. See, a lot of things, we call Mr. Modi as a marketing person. A lot of people call him as a marketing person, but a lot of things, what he does, it goes without any advertising or marketing.
Yeah.
He does very silently a lot of things.
Yeah. And I was very keenly observing his breakfast meet with all the Olympians, right, recently, and how he interacted with all of them. That really shows how he communicates and connects with people. And that's quite important as a leader, I would think. And
100%.
That inspires people.
Yeah, that 100%. And he has set a precedent. He has set a precedent for the coming prime ministers that, it will now become a protocol. Now, I don't know how sincere the future chief prime ministers will be doing it, but it will now be a protocol to host them before so see, in the last 7 years, we have seen some path-breaking measures by Mr. Narendra Modi. So, because whatever he has done in terms of Mann Ki Baat, of communicating, in fact, my father was 85, if I'm right, 85, he says that he has never seen a prime minister and he was born pre-independence, before independence. Okay. And he says there has not been a single prime minister in this country who has connected and communicated with the people the way Mr. Narendra Modi is doing. And he used to admire the articulation capability of Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay. And he today appreciates Narendra Modi. That's a different story altogether. But the point was, he says that no prime minister, even on one side, you have a press and media saying that he doesn't talk to us, he doesn't host the press conference, but he directly talks to people.
Yeah.
And I can connect to the prime minister of this country. I can go to the Namo app and connect with him, and I can put across a message. I can put in Twitter. I can send a personal message to him. So he has a direct rapport with people, and he doesn't. He's somebody who bypasses the agency or the middleman. Who are you? Why do I need them? Is what his question is.
Got it. And you talked about Indira Gandhi's slogan, Garibi Hatao. I think for 70 years, nothing much was done there. All right. When we had to talk about toilets in 2014, that means nothing much was done in that area. And even I think villages were also ignored for the most part. The basic standard of living. Right. You agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Yes. See, Garibi Hatao was a famous slogan which was coined. Then Rajiv Gandhi himself said that if I spend 1 rupee, only 15 paisa goes to the beneficiary. So that is where I would say Jan Dhan Yojana, which probably people don't realize, because see, all these reforms, the 6,000 rupees per year to the farmer or the COVID thing, all this is happening because you have the Jan Dhan Yojana. And these are the same people in the Congress who are criticizing, why do you want to open bank accounts for the poor people? They will not even have 1 rupee in the bank account. What is the fun? Are you going to give money to them? Now he has proved, it's direct benefit. And today the finance minister of Tamil Nadu, the most educated, most intelligent, who has come from the best of the universities. He says, why are we not doing direct benefit transfer? Why are we giving it? He has to ask his own chief minister. Okay. Now he is accepting that what is being done by Mr. Narendra Modi and the central government is worth it. But he would say, I will not listen to the Prime Minister because I don't understand his language. He'll give all flimsy reasons and excuses. His budget was nothing but the copy-paste of Narendra Modi. Okay. And that is also known very well. So that is the kind of person he is. Anyway, so I had to take a dig at him and I got the opportunity. That's it.